A lot of people are going to be left holding the bag. And unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is, again, the government's going to come in and say, we told you so, capitalism is no good, we need more regulation to protect the consumer, to protect the investor, and it's ultimately going to create even more problems to serve the public. Well, it got on my radar pretty early on, maybe around 2010, 2011. People told me about it. So, and that's the only way I heard about it, was from people telling me. I mean, obviously it wasn't like in the news the way it is today. They weren't talking about it on TV nonstop like they do today. But in libertarian free market circles, there were some people that were playing around with it. And because I swim in those circles, right, I found out about it. And, I thought it was interesting, but ultimately, I always see long-term. And I saw the flaws and the reason why it would never actually work for the purposes that it had been created and what people were thinking. And I didn't buy it. But the mistake that I made in not buying it, I just did not see the potential that it would catch on, that so many people would be taken in by it and be fooled by it, such that, you could have this gigantic, pyramid, Ponzi, chain letter type of effect. But I had known in my career that I'd seen all sorts of crazy bubbles during the dot-com era and during, the real estate era, that, why couldn't we have a bubble in Bitcoin? And in fact, it wasn't just Bitcoin. One of the objections I had to Bitcoin when I first heard about it was that, well, what if somebody else comes up with another digital currency? What's to stop that from happening? I mean, there could be an unlimited number of these. And I was right about that. There's now over 11,000 of them. But the bubble has gotten so big that the market has been able to accommodate all of that supply because we've had all this demand. But to me, it's just another bubble. In fact, it's probably the biggest bubble when it comes to how ridiculous it is, because I ultimately think that cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, have no value at all. So at least real estate has some value. Stocks have some value. And that value, was overpriced in the market. But I don't see any value in these crypto tokens that can be created out of thin air in an indefinite number that actually don't have any real utility. All they are is a token that you can collect. And if you can find somebody who will buy it from you, you can sell it to them. But I think the rest of it, all the marketing, it's all a bunch of hype. And it's unfortunate because I do think a lot of people who are coming late to the party, and if you're buying Bitcoin now, you're not getting in on the ground floor. You're late. A lot of people are going to be left holding the bag. And unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is, again, the government's going to come in and say, we told you so, capitalism is no good, we need more regulation to protect the consumer, to protect the investor. And it's ultimately going to create even more problems for, the legitimate investment industry, making it even harder to serve the public.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a big fan of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general. I've always been a big stock market investor. I mean, in fact, that's really how I made most of my wealth, was through public stocks. I've been doing it for 10 years now, nonstop. But when Bitcoin came around, the problem with me was that I couldn't see what I call the killer app for this new invention. Like, for example, when the Apple computer first came out, spreadsheets were the killer app. Here is something that you couldn't do anything else, you couldn't do on any other platform. People were doing it by paper. Changing a number would take you 3 days to redo all the calculations, when suddenly, you had the spreadsheet, you had the word processor, and so forth. I mean, with Bitcoin, you can make electronic payments with your credit card. You can make electronic payments through your bank. The one real advantage I see with Bitcoin is doing illegal transactions. And you can't really base a business on illegal transactions. Now, Bitcoin seems to have done pretty well over time. So it's not like I was particularly right or particularly wrong, but for me, it just wasn't the type of investment that I would do myself, because I only really invest, just like I don't invest in gold as opposed to a company, because I feel like a company generates money. Something like gold or Bitcoin really just sits there and waits for someone to pay a higher price for it.
Yeah, well, first of all, when it comes to illegal transactions, there are other cryptocurrencies that do a better job than Bitcoin. And in fact, as Bitcoin becomes more popular, it actually becomes more regulated and it becomes harder and more expensive to do the illegal transactions. So it's really only used to speculate. But there is a difference. When you say gold just sits there, it sits there preserving the value of a metal. See, this is what the Bitcoin community doesn't understand. Gold is a commodity and it's a metal. It's the most useful metal in the world. And it's used for all sorts of things. I mean, one of the primary uses is for jewelry, but it's also used in electronics, in aerospace, in dentistry. It has very unique properties that other metals don't have. And so you need gold for certain applications. Now, the beauty of gold is it doesn't lose its properties over time. It doesn't decay. So I can have gold, and in 10 years, in 100 years, you can still use that gold for whatever you would have used it for today. It's not like it's going to rot or it's going to break down. So that's why it's a store of value, right? I'm storing that value for future use. So I don't have to use my gold now. I can use it, right? I have a gold watch that I'm wearing, but the beauty is if I got tired of this watch, I can melt it down and I can get the gold back and I can do something else with it. So it has value. And so do other commodities, but those other commodities don't work as well as money because you can't store them as easily as gold, and they may not, they may tarnish or decay over time, unlike gold that retains the properties. See, the Bitcoin community doesn't understand. They think gold is worthless. It's not. It's very valuable. It's Bitcoin that's worthless. And, there's also a difference between stocks, right, and gold. When you own a stock, you own a piece of a business. That business operates and generates a profit, and you can get a dividend, or the company can use the profits to buy back shares, right? So it's a real business. When you own real estate, you own an asset. You can rent it out and collect rents. If I buy a bond, I get interest, right? Those are income producing assets. Gold is not an income producing asset. It is a commodity like copper or wheat or corn, but it has different properties than those commodities that makes it a better store of value than those commodities. And it's better as money than dollars or euros or yen. Before we used these fiat currencies, instead of money, the world used gold as money. And gold was superior to use because it was more stable and it held its value over time. So we could make transactions, and I can agree to buy something and pay you over the course of years or even decades. And if we're transacting in gold, you have a high degree of confidence in the value of those future payments. But when I'm making contracts in fiat currencies, who knows what they're going to be worth in the future? They may not be worth anything because they have no intrinsic value. It's just all a confidence game.
Right. And I agree with you. I understand that gold is a commodity and it has an intrinsic value and so forth. I'm just saying that in terms of an investment, most times, when you take gold versus a company that's consistently profitable year after year, and you see where those investments are 10 years down the line. Like I said, gold went from 1,000 to 1,800, which is not bad. That's an 80% increase. But in that same time, you put your money into an Amazon or a Netflix, it went up 20, 30 times.
Yeah, well,
that's
again,
all I mean.
Yeah, well, but you don't want to call gold an investment because it's not an investment. Yeah. It's any more than if you took dollars and put them under your mattress, you wouldn't consider that an investment. You would say, well, I'm saving some dollars. So gold is an alternative form of savings, right? So instead of stuffing bills under your mattress, you can take some gold coins. It is not an investment. An investment generates a return. Gold doesn't do that, right? So stocks are an investment. And of course, the difference is you buy some of these stocks, the companies can go bankrupt. They can go to zero. So you could lose a lot of money investing. You're not going to lose in gold because you're not going to lose your gold. If you have an ounce of gold and you put it, under your mattress, that ounce of gold is not going anywhere. You don't have to worry about losing that ounce of gold. You're going to retain it. So it's a form of savings. It competes with dollars and euros and yen. It does not compete with Amazon or stocks.